What's up guys, Johnny here, welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to finish up my review of the Race Day Quads Mach 1. I've already had part 1 and part 2. If you haven't seen those, definitely check those out. Get some of my initial thoughts on this build. But I wanted to bring this last update. I've been using this quad for a bit. I'm feeling way more comfortable with it. I'm pretty sure this is the quad I'm going to use to race in the regionals. Trying to get familiar with it, trying to race it, trying to make sure that I'm familiar with how it flies versus some of the other ones that I've been flying. The key thing I wanted to let you know about is I've made a few modifications for when I made part 1 and part 2 of the build. So obviously I mentioned when I was at Flight Fest, I wound up smoking one of my Hyperlight V4 motors, and I really like those motors. And I don't think they smoke because there's anything wrong with the motor. I just wasn't being very smart when I plugged it on. I didn't allow the motor to spin freely. It caused, too much current and it smoked. Anyway, because I was at Flight Fest, I wound up going over to the Ready Made RC booth and I picked up some of the rifle motors. Those things have been fantastic. They're made by T-Motor. They're really, really strong. They have a lot of speed on them. Really good torque. I like the way it feels around the race course, and I'm really happy to stick with these. I've also bought a replacement Hyperlight motor, so I can get to building another quad with the Hyperlight motors at some point. But for now, I don't plan on switching off of these on this thing. It's working too well. Now, one thing that I mentioned that I really did not like with the Race Day Quads build that I got when I originally got it, and that was the mounting hardware for the camera and for the video transmitter antenna. Now, what I ended up doing is I wound up printing off an antenna mount that I could use in the back, and I switched to this one instead of the one that came with it. Now, what I am happy to say is that I did order another Race Day Quads Mach 1, and it actually came with the same exact mounting piece that I have here. So I don't know if they switched out the old one because others didn't like it as well, or if because I didn't order the race model this time, maybe the race one has a different one than the standard one. Now, that brings me to another point. Why did I order a second build with the normal arms? Well, while I like the idea of a super light quad, and I like the idea of having disposable arms, if you will, kind of like the Hyperlight Floss model, where it's okay as long as only the arm breaks, you can change an arm pretty easily. These arms are just breaking way too easily. I think at one point I had 4 crashes, some of them not too bad, and I broke 3 arms. 3 or 4 crashes breaking an arm is just, it's not okay. I was trying to do it on a race day, and I'd fly, I'd crash, and I'd have to replace the whole arm, pull everything apart, put it back together, put a motor on there, make sure it's good to go, resolder anything that came disconnected. And then I'd fly again, crash again. Oh, got to do the whole process again. I spent too much time trying to fix it. Even though the racing arms are really cheap, I just can't afford that time. So I decided to swap those out and go with the normal arms. You gain about 12 grams total on the quad, but I don't notice the 12 grams that much flying. To me, it's worth the durability versus that added weight advantage in turns. It still flies absolutely amazing, even with the normal arms. Now, what I can say is with the normal arms, I haven't had a single issue. I've crashed this thing significantly harder than I did with the racing arms, and I've yet to break anything. So far this is working out great, and that's why I picked up exactly the same normal arms build to build as a second quad. So I think this is a good compromise. It definitely increased the weight. I'm closer to 300 grams now versus where I was before, but I'm okay with that compromise. This thing still flies amazing. Now, the second thing is, you notice I'm holding the mount here, the TPU mount for the video transmitter antenna. Even with this piece, which works better than the standard piece, I still didn't feel it was necessary. So I wound up taking the antenna and just mounting it straight to the top plate and zip tying it down in place. This has actually given me really good protection for the antenna, and it's also provided really good video experience so far for me too. I'm not having any video breakup. So far I'm really happy with this. The other thing I wound up doing is I actually prefer the Tramp video transmitter to the Unify Pro Race, which I was using before. So I did switch this one over to a Tramp. Now you might ask, like, the Unify is amazing, the Race is amazing, why would I like a Tramp better? Well, I find that the performance is the same between them, but there's a nice feature with the Tramp, and that's that I can plug in an NFC module and change the channel without ever having to power this thing on. Now, if you're at a big event like when I was at Flight Fest, this really can come in handy, and I was using it on a different quad, where they have each line stacked up for each channel. You have to get in line. You can walk up to your quad, look at the line, see the one that's shortest, get in that line, just boop, change the channel, and you're good to go. So that's a really sweet feature, and for a video transmitter with the same RF performance as the Unify, or at least as far as I can tell, that's a really, really nice bonus. So I'm happy with that on my Racer. Just in case we go to another big event, it's really easy to change channels. I like that a whole lot. So one other big change that I made to this quad, and maybe I should have led with that one, and that's the camera. So I don't know if you remember, but in part 2, I wound up using the mini Runcam Swift, and it was still pretty hard to mount inside of this frame, and especially I couldn't get that reliable camera angle that I want for my racing quad. So I wound up switching out to the Micro Swift, and on this build, this thing works amazing. So one thing that's really nice is because it's so small, I was able to swap out to the smaller included standoffs. I believe these ones are 25mm. And in this build with the flight controller and an all-in-one ESC, I probably could have gone even further, maybe even, you know, getting these things down to 20mm or smaller. Makes for a really tight build. The mounting hardware when using the Micro is actually much better. It holds that position great. I really like the picture coming out of this thing. The only thing I'm thinking about changing is the fact that this is a 2.1mm lens, and I'm thinking for racing, the 2.3mm might be a better choice. That's the last thing I plan to play with before regional, see if I like 2.3 better, but I'm either gonna run this at 2.1 or run it at 2.3 in that race. So once racing's done, one thing I do plan on playing with this build is a GoPro mount. So they do have one of these on Thingiverse, and I'll link it below. So it's a nice thing that with a really light quad, you still can put a GoPro on there and try it out. I don't plan on using that for racing, but I figure once regionals are done, I'll be okay with experimenting it and seeing how it works for freestyle compared to my normal freestyle quads, which weigh a little bit more. So yeah, I got a bit of advice through this process, and I really like tinkering with things. I really like playing with different technologies. I like playing with different quads, frames, different motors, seeing which one feels the best. But I'm trying to compete at high-level races, and I'm trying to perform well. And I think what I need to learn to do is just take a step back, chill out a little bit with learning new things, and find something that works well. Right now, this works really, really well. I love the way this flies. Now, what if it were to break? What if I'd break something on race day? That's why I picked up the second one. I'm gonna build the exact same quad as this. I'll have the spare. If I break this, I'll switch to it. I should feel confident going racing, know that I'm familiar with my quad, know how I should be able to get it around the race course, and hopefully that's gonna help me improve my racing results. So if you are like me and you like tinkering and keep playing with things, maybe you wanna follow this advice that I'm gonna follow, and that's stick to something that works really well for you. And so far this works really well. This is my go-to racer. I'm gonna keep racing this thing, absolutely love it. It screams around the course, but racing others with it, it's been performing awesome. I've had quite a few race days. I can't wait to get this out and rip it in a real multi-GP race. Looks like that race is going to be regional finals, and I can't wait to bring you that footage, and hopefully I can perform pretty well with this thing. Anyway guys, I just wanted to update you, let you know how about this build. I still love it, highly recommend it. Definitely want to make a few changes, like go with the micro camera, it works best. Do something about the mounting hardware for the VTX, and stick with the normal arms. But it's a great build. Check it out if you're interested. I'll leave a link below if you want to go buy it, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.